Hello, and thank you for joining us today for another episode of Women Who Lead. And I'm so excited to be featuring leaders who are making a difference as we celebrate Global Diversity Awareness Month. Today, we have three dynamic leaders who are dedicated to making a difference and whose mission is to celebrate, educate, and also make an impact. Each are focused on creating awareness surrounding their organizations, businesses, and the communities they serve. Hello, my name is Theresa Palacio-Smith, and I'm Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer of Home Services of America and HSF Affiliates. This series was developed because it was a passion for me and our company to introduce talented and extraordinary leaders that are making a difference. My family, as you all know, is originally from Colombia, South America. And when we get together with friends and family, we always say, what? ¿Quieres un cafecito, right? Every one of us, right? Which translates to, would you like a cup of coffee? Because having that cup of coffee and breaking that bread together is how we get to know each other better. So representing NARAB, which focuses on increasing sustainable home ownership for the Black community and underserved minority markets, to connecting with one of the co-chairs of the newly created Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Forever Pride Network for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, along with a Latina creating marketing and culturally aware global materials to increase brand awareness and market recognition. Each of these dynamic women are going to provide you with the why this is important and what it means to celebrate our differences. And I found this quote and I thought it was just perfect for these women today. Culture does not change because we desire to change it. Culture changes when the organization is transformed and the culture reflects the realities of the people working together every day. I thought that was really nice, Frances Hosselbein. So let's introduce our special guests today who are our impactful change leaders. So first, Belinda Hernandez. Belinda is a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Georgia Properties and serves as one of the co-chairs of the newly formed Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Forever Pride Network. That is a mouthful, but we are so excited to have this network now, and we'll be telling you a little bit more about it. Prior to joining Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Belinda had a successful 30-year career in broadcasting and digital media. She served in various leadership roles, including executive producer and managing editor, and has earned an Emmy and a Peabody Award for her work as a journalist. That is so impressive, Belinda. Her last 12 years were spent as a sales executive with CNN, where she is best known for her expertise in business development as well as customer service. But also, Belinda served as the co-chair for Turner Broadcasting's business resource group called Turn Out, which provided LGBTQ plus visibility. And when I was first introduced to Belinda by our senior vice president of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Georgia's East Cobb office here in my hometown, Mary Christ, from that minute on, I launched, and latched on to Belinda's expertise and her energy that you're soon going to see in a few minutes. Monica Maldonado. Monica is the president and CEO of IPCOM. She is a dynamic community leader, small business advocate, and a trailblazer with over 30 years of experience in business. And I honestly can attest to that. Under her leadership, IPCOM has been named one of the top 500 Hispanic American-owned businesses in the United States, top 100 minority-owned businesses in Georgia, and top 100 women-owned businesses as well. She has won numerous awards, too many to mention here, but among them are Jackie Robinson's Most Valuable Diverse Business Partners Award, and was recognized in the inaugural class of the 50 Most Influential Latinos in Georgia by the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I've known Monica and her family for over 25 years. The time that she's been in business, when we both were just newbies, right, Monica? And we have been friends ever since. So Monica, welcome to the show. It's such an honor to have you. And then Renee Wilson. Renee is the interim executive director for the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. also known as Realtist. Renee's has a strong background in mortgage lending and residential real estate. She's a broker owner of CTS Real Estate Services, licensed since 1989, and CTS Consultants for a firm which provides services to nonprofit, national, and local organizations to assist the leadership and board fulfill the organization's mission, goals, and objectives. Renee's passion is educating young adults and women in attaining their desires and dreams because, and I love this, dreams do come true. And I think that's so beautiful, Renee. The youth was a primary focus during her tenure as president of the Houston Real Estate Association of Women Councils, NAREB, and an affiliate of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Renee has served as NAREB's State of Housing in Black America, which is known as the Sheba Report, right? Coordinator, and also serves as the Sheba Committee Chair, Fundraising and Business Development Consultant. She's also received numerous awards and recognition for her service. And I have to tell you, I met Renee in 2011, that far ago, Renee, when I became national board member of NARB. I wasn't even the president yet. But I remember one thing that NARB does so beautifully, and all the other organizations do so well, is that we support each other and we invite our colleagues from other organizations to get involved. And I met you when Julius Cartwright was the president, and I still remember that meeting, Renee. And from that moment on, we have just connected. And I remember when I first came on to HSF, I said, we have to become, and Gina was also very committed, a part of your organization and support that mission. So again, welcome to all of you. Let's get started. I'm so excited to have you on the show. And the first question I always ask is, tell me a little bit about your business. How did you get started? And I'm going to start with you, Monica Maldonado, to find out a little bit about how you got started in your business, and then Renee and Belinda.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm excited to be here. And the starting of my business is a family business. You know, my father bought into a franchise of a printing company, being colorblind. So he couldn't tell from blue to red to green. So thank God, you know, he didn't have to actually do the printing jobs, right? But that's how we started. Bought into a franchise, brought us over from Colombia. And I got married, came to the United States, and started to work with him. One thing about Latinos is like they want to keep all the chickens together. So, you know, this was my father and my family just wanting us to keep here. So we started as a printing company 37 years ago. And today we are the largest woman-owned Hispanic business of its kind that actually does commercial, digital, and also have opened the whole full agency side doing a lot of integrated marketing services.
And I love that you do so much global work, and you have worked with several of our companies. And, you know, being a second generation, and I knew your father, I know he passed away recently, and what a special family you have, Monica. Every one of your kids, just Rafi and Veronica, I just love the fact that, you know, the respect that they have for you. And I know, Renee, you know all about this because you were able to interview, right, Veronica and Monica on one of your shows. So Renee, tell us a little bit about how you got started with NAREB and the work that you do.
Well, I can't start without starting with my dad, particularly, who believed in real estate, one of 17 in a small country town in Alabama, dreamed of going to Los Angeles. We still haven't figured out why Los Angeles was the place of all the other 50 states, but he made his way there over, you know, several stops with the car breaking down, but believed in that. And growing up, he always said, no matter what you do, you should keep a real estate license, or you should know about real estate. And he brought properties over the years that are still in my family. So with that, I always wanted to be a woman-owned business. I just thought that if you own your own business, you could get up when you want, you could do what you want, say what you want. Of course, we now know that that is not the case, but that's what I thought. And so I always said, when my son leaves, you know, if I have to eat a peanut butter sandwich, I'm going to have my own business. And so I kept my license because that's what my dad said. And when he left, I jumped and said, I'm going to do this thing, and learned that there was a lot more hours in real estate than what I thought was going to happen by saying I was starting my own business. And that got me started. And I joined NAREB. We had a development project, and I needed to get some first-time home buyer down payment assistance. A couple of the members came, asked me had I heard of the Houston Black Real Estate Association. I had not. I went to a meeting. I joined everything. I joined the counseling. I joined the women's group. I was so excited in what I heard at that meeting. I went to the first national convention 2 months later, joined some sessions, started serving. I always say service makes way for your gifts. So the whole thing started with me for serving and getting on committees and just being so passionate about what the organization was doing. And here I am now 17 years later, being the national relationship manager and now voted in as the interim executive director. And that took a lot of work and service, but it has been an amazing journey.
And I can tell you, I mean, Renee, that is a gift to NARAB. You are a gift because you really do walk the talk and really focus on the mission. And that is something that is so beautiful. And again, that leadership that each one of you possess is the one thing that I think, you know, our organizations do help us develop, right? Each one of us. I know it did for me. And Belinda, I know it has for you as well. And being involved with Turner and all the work that you did there led you to this beautiful role that we now have the honor of having you help us develop. So tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, as you had mentioned, I spent 30 years. I was blessed to have a very successful run in broadcasting and digital media. And I knew that at some point I was going to get my license, whether I continued in that business or elsewhere. The opportunity came along a couple of years ago for me to take a hiatus. I did. I decided to just kind of take some time off for a couple of years. Lo and behold, COVID happens. I'm like, okay, now's a good time, I guess, to get that license. So I did. I have held, I've had investment properties in the past here and there. And I was looking at it at first as, you know, using the license as a vehicle for me to just continue building up my portfolio with investment properties. And then I ran into a friend who suggested, well, you know, you should maybe think about going to see my broker who's at Berkshire Hathaway, Mary Christ, you mentioned her. Had an amazing, it felt like 2-hour meeting with her. And this woman, it's because of her, I am now part of the Berkshire Hathaway family. And like Renee, you said you wanted to have your own business. I've always had an entrepreneurial side. And now's the time for me to just go all in. There's never been a better time to be in real estate. So I think I'm kind of lucky to be in it at this point in time. It's a crazy time, as we know, but it's a good time to be in it.
It really is. And no matter what you do, the one thing I can tell you about real estate, because I have been in it for a long time, is that there are ebbs and flows in every business. But the one thing that real estate really does help is create wealth. You know, whether, you know, owning property, you're never going to run out of, you know, you're running out of land, right? That's the one thing you can never just create. So it's awesome that each of you has decided, Monica, we're going to get you in real estate before it's all said and done. So you and I have known each other, Monica, since the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce days. We got to recognize Sarita, right? Sarita Gonzalez, who really was a mentor to both of us. She actually, to me, is just one of those leaders that I will never, that touched our lives. So tell me more about the work that you do as it pertains to marketing and cultural awareness, which is so important today, right? To make sure that, you know, when we are trying to assist our clients and our customers, that our materials depict the communities that we serve, but that they're also culturally aware.
Yes, and just going back to your first comment on Sarah Gonzalez and the people that impact you in your life, and to actually come first circle to know that my daughter now is kind of presiding over that chamber. So it's just like 30 years after all of that. So yes, thank you. You know that IPCOM is a full-blown agency. And so marketing without cultural awareness, you know, doesn't happen. Today, the relevancy of that is more obvious than ever. And I can put it in simple terms as it takes two to tango. You got to know who you are. You got to know your client. You got to know your products and different in between of that and be aware of that, because if you're not, you're going to break somebody's situation and it's going to be a whole lot of problem. So we have to create the cultural bridges. We have to kind of put some empathy in the way that we communicate. We got to do the research in where we're going to actually be putting these pieces out there to be able to know who we're talking to. If it's Latinos, where they come from, if it's Asians, where they are at, what is the different socioeconomic levels, and so forth, that onto every community. I think that today, more than ever, the relevancy within the multicultural aspect of the differences that we have to be aware. And if we don't know, it's okay, but let's look for it, because Google is a big book, but you come to an agency like us, and that's exactly what we do. We know we do market research. We look for the special strategy that is going to help you achieve your results. And we do it actually, through Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Florida Network Realty. We do all of the translations and transcriptions for their collateral. And they got to be relevant to the area and we're spending. So marketing today with cultural relevancy, multiculturalism, it's the way. And we know better because, as coming from another country, we know we were different. Trying to engage you in the American world, we know we were different. So we had to kind of suavely adapt and go and figure out and open our space. And we continue to do that today. So definitely the awareness is a key to the marketing and how we go about it.
I could not agree with you more. I just came back from ARIA's national conference, and having, the different groups and ethnicities and individuals from Pacific Islanders that are part of their communities, and understanding the nuances and the differences is really, even the culture itself about humbleness and making sure you don't boast and all these. I mean, it was just, because we love Latinos, we love to talk about ourselves, right? Just making sure that you don't do that is really important. So Monica, you guys do a phenomenal job. So I just want to also confirm that, because I personally have used you as well. So Belinda, let's talk about you a little bit about LGBTQ plus in the community and our Forever Pride Network. And tell me a little about your journey, as well as why it's important for us to understand the different celebrations that we're talking about this month, including Coming Out Day, our History Month, all of that's really relevant to our communities and the ones that we serve.
Absolutely. And Monica nailed it when she said we have to know our audience. You have to know who you're marketing to. So from a business perspective, knowing LGBTQ in the marketplace, an organization would be foolish not to have it as a business imperative, as part of their strategy. The LGBTQ Real Estate Alliance, and Theresa, you know this, they did a study and they did a great business case, and it shows the disparity in home ownership between the rest of the country at 65% and the LGBT community at 45%. Well, guess what, folks? That's an underserved market that we can target and help bring them up. You also said about building generational wealth. That's the first step to building generational wealth, is home ownership. So with Forever Pride, when Mary Chris put us in touch with each other, I just felt a kinship with you, and we were on the same page about, within Berkshire Hathaway, our Forever Pride Network is bringing together our LGBTQ plus employees, agents, brokers with the senior leadership and the company, in creating that culture of inclusivity, creating the culture of people just understanding differences, and using that again to further the business. We're really excited too about our Forever Pride Network. I got to give a shout out to my co-chairs, Alex Cruz and Robert Dawson. We have amazing meetings, and then Theresa is our executive sponsor. So thank you for all the work that you do. But to mention, October is LGBTQ History Month, and that's to recognize notable figures throughout the years that have contributed to advancing our community. And then this past October was National Coming Out Day. And October 21st is Spirit Day, to help shine a light on bullying and anti-bullying against LGBTQ youth. So I think all that combined to say that visibility and raising awareness, it benefits an organization both internally with your employees, your agents, your brokers, and externally with generating, revenue. So I mean, it's a twofold thing.
It really is. And, I just came back from San Francisco and had the opportunity to go down to the Castro district and that beautiful area where it all started, where gay rights movement began. And I think it's really important. Also, we featured Alex Cruz at a session that talked about, knowing data like the suicide rate and information that's really important just for children, for kids to feel accepted, included, and respected. That's really what we all want. And also, you touched on, Belinda, increasing home ownership and, and how it's at 49%, 47% for the LGBTQ plus community. The lowest of all, though, is the African-American Black community. That has not changed at all, Renee. And that is something that you are very passionate about, and certainly something that I am as well. And so let's talk about your mission and the work that you do and that NAREP does to try to help increase the numbers and how important that is as well.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned earlier that I talked about was the state of housing in Black America. We started that report in 2012. And the unfortunate thing that we've heard, even with the 50 years of fair housing, when we did the celebration a couple of years ago, things really have not changed, which is, very, very unfortunate. So we have always released that report at the Congressional Black Caucus each year in September. We've done it virtually the last couple of years. In this administration, we have been focused because we're very concerned about what needs to happen differently. There has to be something different because we just keep repeating the same outcomes year after year after year. Each year that we do the report, some of the items that we have focused on just have not changed. There's been discussion, there's been meetings, there's been legislation, there's been proposals, there's been ideas, there's been concepts. People have been working really hard, and the outcome is just the same. So we have developed what we call our 5 pillars, which is in the back of my picture to my right is our leadership team. We're very excited to have 2 women leaders. We give the guys a hard time. It's like, we're not leaving you out, but we do have 2 women that are back to back this year. So over the next 4 years, we have 2 amazing and dynamic women that have extensive backgrounds in the real estate arena. They pretty much cover from counseling to development to building to selling and helping people along the process. So we have 2 women that pretty much cover the gamut that are working very closely together. And we're really excited about the impact that we're going to be able to have. So we're saying now we don't have a 4 or 5 point plan, we have a 1-point plan. And that 1-point plan is to increase Black home ownership through a 5 pillar strategy to kind of cover the gamut and expand beyond just educating and then leading someone through the process of home ownership. We're trying to broaden all, if you will, an ecosystem strategy to figure out how we can make true impact through building out programming as a result of what comes out of that report this year, which we're going to release November on the campus of the HBCU, which will be Texas Southern University, and identifying we have 3 key policy positions and really drilling down on what is it that we need to do and having the people who are responsible, if you will, in those positions to hear from us, to hear the data and hear the strategies that we have, and then talk about what they can do in order to help us along the way. So yes, increasing Black home ownership is increasingly important because we've been doing it for so long, and we are very focused on how are we going to see something different in the
and moving the net, right, the needle, right? And I know there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Number one, I think changing the mentality, and this happens in the Latino community too. So it's not just, again, we have the ethnicity as well as being Black and del Caribe. So we have a little bit of that as well. And that also we tend to gravitate in general to larger cities, right? The cost of housing and affordability, number one, is very difficult. The down payment that we perceive that we have to have in order to get into a home. the fact that we have kind of a rentership mentality in general. Our families have rented and not owned. So changing that perspective, creating opportunities to get more people in our field. Hey, we're inspired by people that look like us, act like us, and see us in the same way. And so getting more people to own brokerages, to be part of our franchises, and also to be real estate agents and lenders and title, that's where I think the key will be. And we're doing everything, and I know that so is NARAB, to do that and to improve the numbers there. And so we need your help.
One additional point to that, I think within the 5 pillars that we are strategizing, to do assessment, we're looking at focus groups because we want to hear directly from individuals their reason for not owning. What do you see as the hurdles that you need to overcome? And a lot of it are myths, some of the ones that you mentioned, to be able to educate people that is not the case, and have our partners be involved that bring information, not just about products, but all this racial equity that's going on. What does that really mean? What are we really saying? How do we drill down to really understanding the various cultures and how to interact? I think there's a huge education piece internally for us and externally. So I think spending some time almost doing like a reset, I call it throwing everything in the middle of the table, and let's just try to see, where do we start? How do we reset? Yeah, and hear from people of their reasonings, their background, what they come from, what they would like, and then trying to figure out in our programming, how do we do that once we identify the barriers, and really focus on how do we eradicate those things in order to give people a true opportunity to be successful in the things that they desire.
And we actually, personally, all of you audience members really need your help. We really need your help. So, providing us with the feedback for those, so that we can know where do we start and how can we really help move that needle. All right, now I want to change and pivot, because this is all about leadership, and I'm really interested in hearing a little bit about your personal journey and about how you became who you are today, that leadership style that each of you has that I am so attracted to. And so let's talk about first challenges. What are some of the challenges each of you personally have faced in your journey, especially as it pertains to your success? And Belinda, I'll start with you, and then Monica, and then Renee.
Sure. I have been out of the closet I came out at a very young age. I was 17, 18 back in 1979. Do the math and you can figure out my age here. But it was very challenging. It was very challenging. It was a time when AIDS was running rampant. There was a lot of hate towards the gay community because of that, because of the lack of education and understanding. But I never hid it, didn't flaunt it. I'm not out there, like at the front lines with the fist up, but I'm not going to hide it. Every job interview that I've been in, I've let the person know, you know what, I'm out. You're going to see me with my partner at whatever holiday celebration we do. I'm going to have a picture of my partner and I on my desk, just like you have one of yours and your partner, husband, wife on your desk. So I've never hidden it. However, I have faced challenges. Some of them have been overt, some of them not so overt. They have been everything from being treated differently, not so much called any bad names or anything, but there's been some challenges. There was one where I'll give you a particular case if you have a minute. Someone, a boss who I knew that there was something there that he didn't like about me. And, he said some things that were very subtle and not so subtle to me through the years. And finally, a coworker confided in me and said, this person says, just don't get Belinda in the gay thing. So, there's been opportunities, but what I'm hoping in a situation like that my performance, the person that I am, I like to think that I have integrity, honesty, openness, not to mention the production of what I've done. I'm hoping that will shed a light and help enlighten people like that and educate people like that.
Well, Belinda, first of all, the fact that you even had to go in and say, hey, I'm going to have this, really just touches my heart, right? because you are who you are and you're such a special person. So thank you for sharing that with us and with our audience. It really, again, just, I know that you've inspired someone else within our community. Monica, how about you? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, and I want to say to Belinda as well, thanks for sharing. Being vulnerable is not easy, but and also who we are and the decisions that we make doesn't have to change the way we act in business and all that. So yes, kudos to you for kind of showing up. Let's see, I think I haven't had that as big of a stroke as Belinda has shared with us, but the one thing from a business standpoint has been coming as a Colombian and doing business here, starting business and wanting to work with corporate America and always knocking on doors and kind of being put to the part that we might not be ready to step up and work with them, that we are too small of a business. And to me, and I go back to my father, which has been my mentor, my example, and a man that nothing can get in his way. I mean, I remember us starting this print shop 30 some years ago, and he already wanted to do business with Coca-Cola. And truly by that time we weren't ready. Okay. But he sat there and we went and this and that and the other. And by golly, today, I can say after all that and just seeing him with the persistence that we're working with Coca-Cola, Accenture, Kaiser Permanente, Grady, a lot of corporate clientele that has just kind of brought us in. Thank God for diversity and inclusion and the space that we now live and thrive today. So, overcoming that, we're too small.
Monica, look at, it's your personality, baby. It's all you. You are just one of those people that I'm telling you, you energize. You're the Energizer Bunny, right? You walk in and everyone has to know who Monica is. So I have to tell you, I remember that first meeting, that first time at the Georgia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We were in the hallway. I just remember everything about you, and you were the business developer, right? You were in charge of the marketing. So again, just knowing that you're unstoppable. That is just the thing. Nothing's going to stop you. And again, I have to tell you that. And the fact that you said nothing, you didn't feel the same discrimination. I'm just like, that's just a testament to who you are. Renee, how about you?
That is energy she comes with, and you put her daughter with her. It's almost you just can't control it.
Double trouble.
The two of them together is like, get out of the way. So my journey has been pretty interesting. Of course, I've experienced things like everyone else, being African American, being a black woman, starting from growing up in a very small country town, and being told you can't cross the track, into moving to Los Angeles with my mom as a teenager and being a part of the first busing program. We didn't want to go. I certainly didn't want to go. And of course, they didn't want us there. That was very stressful as a teenager, because, if you get a pimple as a teenager, you think it's the end of the world. So it was pretty traumatic for most of us teenagers, going through being exposed to other nationalities and people who didn't look like us. It ended up in a riot on TV. That's how much we didn't want to be around each other. Got past that, but learned my middle school and high school was through the busing program in Los Angeles. I was bused out to Encino. So growing up in Watts and then being bused to Encino, which is where, you have the most exclusive areas. So that was a big difference in the way we lived and the way they lived. One quick funny story is I had at PE, I had a white counterpart asked me if I got sunburned in the sun and if I would turn gray, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then I couldn't figure out why stuff was falling off of her face. But it was some of those experiences that were just, very different. Then fast forward into adulthood and being walking, in a room where you're the only person that looks like yourself, and people just literally will not acknowledge you. Those moments. Once I got my real estate license, I started with RE/MAX Memorial. I probably shouldn't tell the rest of that story, but that was a great experience. I was the only African American there, and learned a lot. It grew from there, but that was an experience. Some people will and some people won't. But what I learned from all of that is, and then you play small because you're uncomfortable. So through all those experiences, what I finally learned was I'm never going to reach my goal if I continue to take into consideration what other people think. Yes, the power of vulnerability. You're correct. It's like starting to be able to read stories like that or books like that help you to identify where those areas are, and then make a decision that that's not going to be you. You're going to tap into, lean in the uncomfortableness so that you can rise. And that's the other book, Rising to Be Strong. One of my favorite authors, as you can tell, has been extremely influential in my decision and in my growth, and realizing that I'm just not the only one that feels this way. And I'm certainly not the only one that experiences it. And you're certainly not going to go through life where everyone is going to be in love with you. So you've got to be able to take the criticism. You've got to be able to take the people who support you. And then it's important to surround yourself around those people who get you, understand you, truly love you, going to encourage you, and accept you for who you are when you have those great days and those not so great days. And the more I've been able to do that, there's always still going to be moments where you start to say, am I really good enough? Can I really get this done? Can I be that? Can I have that? But then you got to have that next thought that say, absolutely, I can. Absolutely, I can do whatever it is that I put my mind to. But then you've got to be willing to do the work.
I think that is the key, right? Because I think a lot of us, I've seen a lot, especially, and I say this with all the kindness, a lot of people coming behind us, right? That look and say, okay, I'm going to do this, but I don't need to do the work. I mean, the one thing that any leader, any CEO, anyone that's made or been successful will tell you, it takes hard work. It takes grind. It takes you being focused. It's not going to happen overnight. Some people do get success overnight, but then they fall too, and so think about all of those things when you're looking at opportunities, and also working hard to get to where you want to be. One thing that you touched on, Renee, and I think something that I always found is that you said that you went to a school in Encino that had more affluent people. And I think maybe in the back of your mind, it did for me, because I was in the same scenario. My dad always bought up, meaning like we were the poorest family in the richest neighborhood. We had the smallest house because my dad wanted to see us in an environment that was surrounded by people that would help us elevate. And I think to this day, I see that, and I always want to be and surround myself with people like you that are smarter than me, that are better than me, because it makes me better, right? It makes me really want to strive to be who I am, today. So I think that it really did format, or maybe it did. What do you think? Yes, or do you agree?
I think certainly, because like I said, I hated being there, first couple of years or so, coming from the deep South and everything that I had learned and heard and what my relatives shared and things that happened to relatives and things that I experienced. So it was a very difficult transition. But I will say what it did do is I got exposed to other things that I think contributed. As I got into the corporate business world, I was better able to manage my actions a lot of times, regardless to how I felt in situations I experienced in corporate America early on. But I was a single mom and I needed to provide for my son. So with that in mind, a lot of things that I normally would have said, I found a different way to say it, because I'm kind of mouthy and I got to say what I got to say. Sometimes it's me in a little trouble.
I think we're all that way.
It's not like I just say,
Yes.
You don't need to say it like at all. I'm always like, well, no, don't say it that way. But it's something about just being able to share a thought or something important for the other person to know, because it's important. So you just can't let it go. So I think I did a little better, not always, but I did a little bit better because I did have some exposure. And I did understand that, different people are brought up in different environments. And I'll give you just one quick example. One of the young ladies that I became friends with, mom had brought her like a Volvo at 16. And she wanted us to go to the house because the maid was fixing lunch. And so about 4 of us jumped in the car, 4 of us, 3 in her driving, got to the house. So we're at the house having lunch. And she thought that her garage door open. So she looks at me and she asked me to get in the closet because she didn't want her mom to know that she had me in the house.
Oh.
And so, that type of an example. And of course, my answer was a wrong question. I don't think so. So happened it wasn't her mother. But in that moment, I learned, oh, and I thought we were building a friendship. It's comfortable, but not really. So, those type of experiences really let you just try to, you learn to adapt and to understand, how to manage your life and the people, like I said, the people who truly do care and connect to you. So I will say that experience helped me to better manage, probably in the position that I've had as relationship manager, to be able to manage relationships, because the most important thing is keeping the relationship on track for the organization and keeping in mind that regardless to how we have to grow, because you and I have gone through, some important conversations to get to a point. I've had that with numerous partners, but it's a process to grow, to get to know one another, and you have to be able to communicate. Communication is very important. So I would say certainly those experiences helped me to learn how to better manage and keep my focus on the main goal. And the main goal and mission for why I do this is the mission of NARAB and the organization in building Black wealth. And so therefore, it's not about me. It can't be personal about what I feel. I have to figure out how to overcome in communication and understanding the other person. A lot of times we have preconceived ideas about what this person think or feel or how they should be. And until you get to know that person, that may not necessarily be the truth. So just
you can always change, right?
Just learning how to
sometimes
communicate.
learning somebody's background or realizing, oh my God, they were having a bad day. It wasn't
now after you
me.
communicate, and
Right.
if it doesn't change after you communicate,
Exactly.
then you got
Yes,
that's a whole
exactly.
different
It wasn't
subject.
about me. It was about something that happened outside of it, because that sometimes helps our perspective. And I know each and any of you that want to pipe in, I love to learn about inspirations, that people that mentored, that inspired you. So tell me, and anyone, again, I know Monica, I think you said you really wanted to talk about, who do you look up for that mentorship or inspiration?
I got so caught up in what you were talking about, Renee, and some personal experience that I'm going to go back to that, but I want to share. Growing up in Colombia, you have, of course, the different socioeconomic levels, and we have all colors, all sizes, and all. But we grew up mid-sized class, and people of color were having the lower economical jobs, right? So that's the way I grew up, right? When I came over here to the United States the first time, and I went and got in a pool, and there was folks around me that were not my color, I was like, oh my gosh. Then I get into this business environment in Atlanta, where the South, the civic rights movement comes in. I can tell you today more than ever, my best buddies are people of color. But that's because you come and you understand, and I talk the language, I understand the language, so I see what you're saying. And we just gotta come above on that. And as far as mentors, part of my mentors are people that have been in the supply diversity space. A lot of them, of course, are, Afro-Americans. Mentors for me that I gravitate to, depending on the subject matter that I am in need, because I'm very transparent and I have learned to let my guard down, because I think that when you do show your vulnerability, you will find people that want to help you. I really don't know about this subject matter, but I know you do. Can you help me? And somebody like that was my dad. I lost my dad earlier this year, races of COVID, and I miss him every day, because he came here to this office, come and go. And, he will check up on me, come into conversations when I'm having this deep corporate conversation. And here he comes to say, do you want something for lunch? And I'm like, oh my God, don't you see that I'm dealing with something important here? But anyway, my dad was one that he will get the phone and call whomever to get an answer. So I have many mentors in every different space. And I am not afraid to reach out, pick up the phone, and acknowledge that I don't know, that I am lost, and I need you to help me.
I love that. I love that. Belinda, how about you?
Yeah, through my career, there's quite a few people that I just too much to name. But what I look for in someone, that if I need a mentor or someone to help me, I look for somebody who has a high EQ, a high emotional intelligence. I want someone who, and I've had people like that in my life, who are more understanding about compassion, people who have character, people who have integrity. Those are the types of people that I will surround myself with when I need mentorship. As far as inspiration, I will have to say my mom and dad. My father's family, they were Mexican immigrants. They taught work ethic to my siblings and I, unlike anything I've ever seen. My mom also, she gave up a lot in her life so that she could help us have better lives. And she stressed education, and she's just a very strong, remarkable woman. And yeah, I look to my mom for inspiration.
Oh, beautiful. Renee?
Oh, I have a lot of great people around me. Most recently, working closely with the two incoming national presidents has just been a true blessing. I have a great respect for the both of them. And as we work closer together, there are things I'm learning about them that I keep saying. I'm older than both of them, but I'm always saying I want to grow up to be just like you guys.
Yeah.
They're just really great women. So I would say more recently in this journey from the organization, it's President Pope and First VP Courtney Johnson Rose. Overall in my life, my grandmother, who had a second grade education, as I get older, I look back on some of those sayings, that we thought didn't make any sense and was just kind of silly. When you become an adult, they have so much meaning in some of those little short, like I would complain about something and she'd say, okay, just keep living. I now understand what that keep living means, because as you get older, you experience a lot of things. So I would say, and my mom and my grandmother had ministries. My grandmother, I come from a long line of ministers. And so my grandmother was a very, very spiritual person. And so was my mom. And my mom had a prayer ministry. And whenever I was on my journey in NARAB, whenever things would get a little tough, I would call her and say, oh, on your prayer call at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, I want to be I'm the top prayer request. And as she started to get sick, she would say, to get ill, she said, at some point, you're going to have to start making yourself the priority on your own prayer list. And so I do miss that now, but I'm learning that the most inspirational thing for me because of them is gospel music. I can get, you give me a couple hours of gospel music. Julius teases me because I will play the same song that's a real inspiration for hours. over and over again. So that's between my grandparents and just the memory of so many things that they said to me over the years. I find the greatest mentorship in that. Never thought of it that way, but the greatest mentorship. And when I just think about their anchor and what kept them over, my grandmother died in her 60s, but my mom was 84. So what kept her through 4 bouts of cancer with, just no complaints, and it was that whole spiritual foundation. And so that for me is what works. That's where I run to when any little wrinkle of anything doesn't seem like it's right.
I love that.
That's my anchor.
Well, and Renee, I'm so glad to hear, because I think each one of you talked about your parents, right? And certainly my mother, my mom died when I was 18. So the mother that raised me, she was only 38 when she passed away, which, think about it now. I mean, that was so young. When you're 18, you think she's so old, but when you're now, it's like 38. Gosh, I mean, I've gone through that, and realizing the impact that she had on my life and my sister's life in the short time that she was with us has carried me through every single day, So,
Everyone.
I mean, every single
Everyone.
day, I always think about every little thing she said to me and the things that made us so special. And even to this day, my Rwana that she made me wear, I smell it and I can smell her. And I think about what a wonderful thing to do, to love your heritage and your culture so much that
very much
instill
so.
that in your children. So
People
I know
people ask where I'm from, and I always say Bakertown, Louisiana. That's where I got
From
made.
Louisiana.
That's
Los Angeles is where I spent a lot of time.
Southern girl. That's
Bakertown,
Southern girl.
Louisiana.
We're all Southerners, right? Every one of
We
us.
are.
Now, one thing we're running out of time, believe it or not. So we have one last I'm gonna have one real quick last question. Best advice that you would give yourself, as an 18-year-old, like, if, what advice would you give yourself, Monica?
I'm trying to give myself that advice now too. Don't sweat the small stuff. There is another day coming. The sun shines every day. Well, depending if it's a bad storm coming out over here, but there's always another opportunity to do something really. That's what I tell my children. It's just don't sweat the small stuff. There's a whole lot of noise going out there, and sometimes you just gotta focus and stay in the path and look up for reassurance, because the word will come. And I enjoyed your delivery, Renee, because I thought that there was a preacher girl right there coming. I was just going to say amen after you said
amen.
Amen.
So
I would say that, yes.
I love that. And Renee, how about you?
Oh my God, there's so many things, except I would say the main thing that I am in love with, it is okay to be vulnerable. It is okay to be exactly who you are, good, bad, and indifferent. My son tries to say, oh, Mom, don't share that. And I'm like, but that's who I am. It's a part of what I am. And that I find that it does inspire other people, other women, other individuals. So learning how to lean in sometimes to the most uncomfortable situations, and it's still scary. And I have to have the conversation, like you said, Monica, sometimes I'm having those same conversations, not just to the younger girl, because it's a constant process. But I would say it's okay to be vulnerable. It really is okay. Tomorrow will come and you'll learn something from it, and take that and keep building on it to become the amazing person that God created you.
Great advice. Belinda.
Yeah, I like that too, Renee. I mean, think about it. It takes real strength. It takes a tremendously strong person to really be vulnerable. So
yes,
I read Renee Brown.
Yes, I love her. Anything with her.
Same here. She got a great podcast, by the way.
Yes,
she does.
I think what I would tell my younger self, that it took me a while to learn when I became an adult, is to just unapologetically be you. Be the person that God made you to be. Is it going to be easy? No, but you don't do the world, your family, anyone any good if you play small. Think about it. The sun doesn't show up every day and it's like, oh, I'm only going to shine halfway today. No, be you and be unapologetically you. Take the licks when they come, and just know that when someone judges you, that's not about you. They're telling you who they really are. So just be unapologetically you.
Oh, I love that. All right, one last question and we're gonna be done. And that is that favorite book, or favorite movie that resonates with you. And I'm gonna start with you, Belinda.
Yeah, there's so many to name, but one of my favorites that I did go back to, and you all have heard it probably before. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. From the late, great Maya Angelou.
Love it.
Quote. Too many books to name, but I do want to say this is one of my favorites. If you haven't read it, talk about Malala. Just pick it up if you haven't read it. We're talking about female leadership. This child, yes, just read the book.
I love her book, and I saw her speak recently, and I think
wow,
so touching. Renee?
As you've been hearing me talk about this entire time, my two favorite books, The Power of Vulnerability and Rising Strong, put those two together. But then any and everything she writes are my favorite books.
Love it. Great advice. And Monica?
Well, I am a cliff note kind of a woman. What can I say? Whatever the subject matter is, I want to learn about it, and a lot of self-help books. But I think that my dad is having a party in heaven, because he always, whatever situation I was having, he just goes back to read Life 101. Read Life 101. It's got a lot of biblical stuff. So I go, and he has circled, things, and put the things that, were good to him. So whatever I'm in, whatever I'm needing, I kind of look at it and I'm like, there's his handwriting saying something. It was his concern. So
Oh.
it has been my life 101. And one of the quotes that came from that book was, we don't receive wisdom. We must discover it for ourselves after a journey that no one can take for us or spare us. Marcel Proust, because I always asked my dad, I was like, well, you should have told me, but you could have shared. You could have done. He said, no, but you wouldn't have paid attention to me. You would have done what you want to do. So, you gotta leave your own wisdom. So that's
That is beautiful.
It is
oh
beautiful.
my God.
And I had not heard of that book, so I'm definitely going to pick that one up.
My condolences to you.
Life 101.
My condolences to you and your family on your father's passing.
And he was an incredible man. I mean, we all loved.
But also, and I will remain to say that an incredible man to be other has to have a support system, and that's my mother.
I was gonna say, and your mother,
there pushing, she's there, 24/7.
Your whole family, Monica. You just
I've been thankful.
Love it. Love it. Well, first of all, thank you all for just participating today. You do not know what it helps, what it means to me, and how much help you are to our audience, how much you do in promoting diversity and the initiatives that you all are passionate about. And I found this great quote that I believe describes each one of you. So do not be afraid to color outside of the lines. Take risks and do not be afraid to fail. Know that when the world knocks you down, the best revenge is to get up and continue forging ahead. Do not be afraid to be different or to stand up for what's right. Never quiet your voice to make someone else feel comfortable. No one remembers the person that fits in. It's the one who stands out that people will not be able to forget. I thought that was just beautiful, right? Nancy Arroyo Rufi. So no doubt, right, that each of you stand out, make such a difference to all of the lives that you touch. I know you've made a difference in mine. Each one of you has touched me in a way that I cannot express in words. Thank you for sharing your experience and for watching our show. We're going to have a hiatus. Our next show is going to be Wednesday, November 10th. And the reason we're going to have a hiatus is because I'm going to come to you live from Halloween. So watch out for that, right? On the November 10th, we're going to recognize our veteran and military leaders. We've got a special show that's going to have women in leadership that are military. Thank you all for showing up. And don't forget to join our Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel. And remember one thing, always bring other women up the ladder with you as you climb to the top. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good to meet you, ladies.